Welcome to Buddha at the Gas Pump. My name is Rick Archer, and my guest this week, or today, is Robin Pandy, who also goes by the name of Moksha Mukti. Did you give yourself that name, Moksha Mukti, or got it from some teacher, or what?
It's interesting how I got this name. Actually, it appeared in my dream, so I got it from my dream,
Okay.
A lot of things.
Something just came to you, and...
Yes.
Yeah. Don't moksha and mukti mean the same thing? Don't they both mean liberation, or do they have different meanings?
It means the same thing, but actually, it is also my stage name. I also do other things, and going to put into stage, Moksha Mukti, it's like first name and last name, so
Okay.
that's why.
Stage name meaning you do some performing, some singing, some things like that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I listened to a bunch of your recordings, several hours worth, and also read a lot of the stuff that you wrote. And I heard you alluding to an event that happened in 2009, some kind of awakening or shift or something, but I never quite found a description of the event itself. Maybe you wrote it and I didn't get to it, but can you tell us about that?
Well, see, this speaker right now who is speaking, experienced something which is what I can tell you is extraordinary. And I can't really, put words to describe, what has happened, at that time. It's only thing I can tell you is that it was extraordinary experiencing, that lasted for, I would say, about several months, you see. And what is left after that experience, is Moksha Mukti. Because what happened was it wiped out all the conditioning that, or I would say attachment to the conditioning was, completely wiped out. You see, it's not here anymore. See, I am not attached to anything, any desire, any conditioning,
So that's an important distinction, actually, isn't it? That it wiped out the attachment to the conditioning, because if it wiped out the conditioning, you wouldn't know how to play the guitar anymore, or brush your teeth, or anything else.
Yeah, exactly. You see, we cannot separate ourselves from the conditioning. You see, I hear in a lot of spiritual community that you give up your conditioning. You cannot give up your conditioning. That's why even after this so-called awakening, I am still participating in life fully and passionately. Actually, my participant is strengthened in this after this.
Yeah. Did the awakening, had you been a spiritual practitioner or seeker or something before this awakening?
Well, I have to be careful how I answer to this question. Because, you see, although you are seeking the spiritual, whatever you are seeking, you see, that event actually is independent to what has happened to me, you see. It's not a related event. So, see, the thought structure we have is actually try to box within its limitation and, so within the limitations, it tries to box everything, and tries to structure everything, and which is limited.
And tries to assign causality.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But to give a simple answer, I heard you mention Deepak Chopra. I don't know if you were studying with Deepak Chopra or what, but had you been doing some sort of meditation or, you're from Nepal originally, so that kind of thing is indigenous to your culture. But you weren't sort of a gambling alcoholic, crazy man who all of a sudden woke up one day. There must have been some kind of something leading up to it.
Again, I have to be careful here because, see, when you say leading, that means, this would be misleading to say that, by doing A, B, C,
right?
You see, that will take you somewhere. You see, that is misleading. And see, we humans have been misleading or misled by the so-called spiritual forerunners by they're being saying that by doing yoga, by meditation, by sadhana, or whatever, somehow, some point you will be enlightened, whatever that may be, you see. But I don't see it like that.
How do you see it?
You see, this is an independent event, how it happens, when it happens, where it happens, you have no way of knowing it.
So this event, let's say, which we could call it enlightenment or awakening or whatever word is convenient, and no word really does justice to it, I'm sure. But if we did a scientific study, and let's say we took a statistically significant sampling of the population and control groups and so on, and we had one group that was practicing spiritual practices, and maybe we could make it a big study, have 10 different spiritual practices, each group practicing a different one, and then 10 different groups who are doing nothing whatsoever, or some of them are taking drugs, and some of them are just not in the least bit. Don't you think that there would be a kind of a higher predominance of spiritual awakenings among the people who are doing the spiritual practices? I mean, doesn't it kind of pan out that way in our society? We see that happening, don't we?
Certainly, the way our thought structure, again, I want to go back to thought structure, the way it is structured, you see, and it is structured by what I call is a comprehensive collective knowledge. See, we have collected knowledge since the beginning of the time, or beginning of the existence of man, whenever that existed, if such thing occurred. Since then, we have collected this knowledge, and that actually is responsible for framing our structure or the condition of our thought. So within that framework, a lot of studies, people put a lot of studies, which is actually, study is the repetition of thoughts. So when you're repeating your thoughts for such a long period of time, you end up coming up with what they call is idea. Profound idea, you see, and that idea is responsible for labeling, like by practicing this, you will succeed. Practicing this, you will fail. And now I have to be careful because that exists in our functioning in the society. You see, we have to function in the society, and to function in the society, we have to accept that process. But in what I call is awakening or whatever it is, that it is totally unrelated to that.
Okay, so you have a guitar sitting behind you, and I presume you know how to play it. And you didn't wake up one morning knowing how to play the guitar. You practiced and you learned, and you were probably really bad at it at first, and then you gradually got better, and maybe now you're pretty good at it. So practice resulted in your ability to play the guitar. But you're saying that doesn't pertain in the spiritual realm.
Well, see, again, I have to be careful here, because I understand exactly what you're talking about. Yes, without playing, without practicing, I cannot be good at playing guitar. Without practicing, even speaking, I wouldn't be able to speak, as good as, what I'm speaking now. I don't know how good is that, but, so practice makes one perfect, because, see, what we experience is the repetition of thought. So if you repeat your thought, you become good at it, you see. You can learn anything you want, from operating a camera to, playing a keyboard, or, becoming a scientist, you see. Even Einstein, he spent 25 years, focusing on something, repeating his thought for 25 years. He came up with something so profound that, everybody looks up to him. He's such a great being. But, you see, even what he says, I can refute that, and one day his theory will be outdated.
So what you're saying is that relative knowledge, such as a scientist might acquire through study and practice and investigation, eventually gets overturned and refuted. Well, let's say, take Einstein as an example since you brought him up. Relativity theory, general and special relativity, came along as a completely new understanding of the way the universe functioned, but it didn't refute Newtonian physics. It just added an understanding of a different layer of nature's functioning. Newtonian, kind of more superficial, gross layer of functioning. Quantum mechanics, or not, relativity theory deals with a deeper phenomenon. So I'm not sure where we're going with this, but in terms of relative knowledge and relative understanding, yeah, it is, by definition, it's relative, and therefore always it's not absolute, it's not ultimate, final, permanent, but
Exactly.
but it has its usefulness.
Exactly. You hit the right word, Rick. Usefulness. See,
Yeah.
what they
It serves a
provide,
function.
Yes, what they provide is their assumption. They asserted with presenting all these ideas, and we accept those ideas because we are conditioned to accept that. You see.
And it serves its usefulness. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Newtonian. The laws of physics of various types have given us airplanes and iPads and all kinds of inventions and so on. It has a practicality to it.
Yeah. See, yes, it has a practicality, and that's all there is to it. You see, they are asserted their ideas, and people accept that as a gospel truth or scientific evidence. But see, all theories, what I'm pointing out is all theories are false. You see, but like you said, they are useful.
So are they really Are they really false, or are they just not complete? In other words, they each provide a little piece of the puzzle, but they're not the whole puzzle.
No, I said they are false.
Okay, so let's take a theory. The theory of, I don't know, relativity, which I don't completely understand because I'm not a physicist, but E equals mc squared. Energy equals the speed of light, matter times the speed of light squared. Is that false?
I would say yes, false.
Why?
It is false because, see, what they are using is what they call is a thought structure. See, thought structure is limited, you see. It does not know the reality, see. One point, humans believed, the theory believed that, hey, the earth is flat, you see. And at that time, if you were there, whatever that time is, you would believe that earth is flat. And if you and I were having conversation at that time, you would say earth is flat. But today, everyone is saying earth is round. And I have to accept that. If I don't accept the earth is round, everybody will call me loony, right?
There are some people out there who still believe it's flat, but they actually have a website.
Yeah, but now, see, the quantum physics or the new physics, I would say quantum physics, they're saying that the earth is a hologram. So would you believe earth is round or a hologram? See? And again, what I'm pointing out is that these scientists will come up in the community, and they are useful. And I accept them, for the usefulness. But, I say all theories are false because what they're doing is they're asserting, well, this is the right way to do it, you see.
I think if we acknowledge that no theory or bit of scientific information or even personal experience can grasp the totality, but each has its specific realm of applicability, then we don't have to say it's false. For instance, Einstein's theory of relativity was proven by an experiment in which it was discovered that starlight is bent by the gravity of the sun. And someone came to Einstein and said, well, what would you have done if the theory had been disproven? And he said, well, I would have been sorry for the dear Lord because the theory is right. Okay. he knew that, Yeah. And it hasn't been disproven. It has its relative truth, but it's just not the total picture of the functioning of reality. It's just it's one aspect of it. Just as gravity is just one aspect to it, and you can take it to another level, and gravity doesn't exist. It's invalid. It's false, you could say, to use your words.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Again, I have to be careful because I do have profession, and if somebody hears talking about this, they would say this guy is absurd. But no, I do accept the reality. Again, I want to point out two realities here. One is, I would say, in my book it is there. A reality, I say, with a small r, and the reality with a capital R.
There you go. That helps.
The reality, okay. The reality that you are talking about with a small r those things are all, I accept that, yes.
Yeah, relative realities.
Yes, yes, I accept that. And those are only illusory reality, which we accept that. And and we accept them because, see, what we have is a mental mechanism that is placed in us. And, you know, that mechanism, through that mechanism, it separates us, see, separate you and I, separate these objects around us. There's a glass, there's a leaf. Actually, I brought these 2 leaves here. I will talk about this in a minute.
Okay.
I was taking a walk this morning, and this happened to be there. Anyway, I'm going off the subject, but yeah. So all this separateness is there through this, what I call is mental mechanism. See, if we don't have this camera in front of us now, and if there is no headset to hear, you know, we won't be able to see each other, right? So similarly, what I'm asserting, or what I'm pointing, is that the mental mechanism that we have, that lets us see the separateness. So that tells us that we are separate. You know, we are individual being. We are independent, and we are separate. You see.
Mm-hmm.
So that is happening through that mechanism.
Right.
You know. So.
And that doesn't seem to be an accident. It seems to be kind of the way the universe is designed. There's all these mechanisms through which separateness is perceived. And yet I think what you're pointing to is that that's not the whole picture, right? There's a deeper reality which is not separate.
Yes, yes, deeper reality. Actually, I have an analogy I want to make, if I may.
Sure.
I have this picture in front of me here. And
oh yeah, one of those things where if you look at it long enough, you find something in it.
So I'm sure you know people have seen it. You have seen this type of picture. So my analogy here is that the universe that I see as the picture, there is nothing there, just like the picture.
In the universe.
Universe.
So clarify that. There's nothing in the universe. What are you saying?
Okay, just like this picture right here, there's nothing here, right?
Right.
Just the dots and whatever.
Lots of patterns and dots. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So the universe is like this, and we have this instrument, mental instrument,
which gives some sense to it, or some interpretation, or
okay,
some.
Exactly. So yeah, through this instrument, we see all these objects.
Right.
We see all this, you know, all these illusory things. We see everything that includes thoughts, feelings, emotions, you know, love, hatred, you know, everything and everything. You see, is the interpretation of the mind. You see, and if you look at through that picture for a long period of time, you'll see there's something there. You see. Right. And that is the interpretation of mind. So the whole universe is like this: dot, 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 molecules, tons of molecules. And yes, and that is you know, interpreted by the mind, and mind sees as the, you know, something. So what we are doing here is the totally interpretation of the mind.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think I get your point. And so, like, if there were 10 beings in the room with you, and there's a mouse, and there's a chameleon, and there's a housefly, and there's a bat, and a cat, and, you know, a bunch of different beings. Each one, they're all in the same room, but each one is is interpreting completely differently, seeing something completely different. So what you're saying is we're all like little filters that sort of just give a little perspective on a much larger reality without actually appreciating what's really there. Are you saying that?
Yes, somewhat, Rick. You know, you're right. The interpretation there, it's the interpretation of the equipment, you see. Just to give you an analogy, you know, you had some different equipment. I couldn't see you clearly, but now you have different equipment. I see you clearly, you see. So we see through the different equipment, you know, but that is not the, you know, true picture of the reality, you see. That is
right. Right, and even from a scientific perspective, we're told that we only experience a little tiny fraction of the electromagnetic field as visible light, and we only hear a little tiny portion of potential sounds that could be heard, like compared to a dog or something, and or smell. We only smell it. So we're very limited in terms of our sensory experience in interpreting what's really happening. Is this the way? Is this the direction you're going in with this?
Well, certainly it is. Yeah, you're right. It is certainly limited, but the direction, I think, what I'm pointing out is that the mind is certainly limited. But what I'm pointing is it is not the true picture of the reality. Again,
Yeah.
I think we are here, having this conversation. In this platform, I think we're talking about reality is the reality, and this is. And my expression is totally radical because, this is going beyond the reality that is apparently, that is available right now. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it does. So I think what you're leading toward is that, to say that, one can somehow open oneself up to or be appreciative of or experience a deeper reality, which is far more vast than all these individual perceptions that are imposed, the limitations that are imposed upon us by our physical senses. Is that what you're getting at? I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to understand where we're going with this logic.
Again, I want to go back again to reality with a small r and reality with the capital R.
Okay.
And, yes. And the mental instrument we have, what I'm pointing out is the mental instrument we have, whatever instrument we have, does not know the reality. There is no way we know the reality through this instrument.
Right.
But there is something within you that is peculiar, that knows the reality, that is connected to the reality, that is already available to you right at this moment, you see.
And is that what happened in 2009 when you had your big awakening? Was there some kind of opening to that reality with the capital R?
You see, it knows this, the certainty I have, whatever this living organism that is functioning here dynamically, the energy behind that, it knows, it gives me authority to speak on behalf of that. But, see, I cannot put into language, describing what has happened, even that is awakening. Even I question, whether there is awakening, you see. Even this is a dream, you see. What I think is this is a dream. There is no difference between the dream that we dream at nighttime and this. Obviously, there is a degree, and there is a separating concreteness that is we experience now than, while we're sleeping. But even in dream, I see this line, I'm sure people have seen a lion chasing you, you're trying to, run away from lion, and you really believe that you're, going like this, you're afraid, your heart is beating, all things happening, and you wake up, hey, it's just a dream. Lion.
Yeah. So I think, throughout history people have said, well, you can't really put this into words. Many people have had spiritual awakenings and enlightenment or whatever, and they've all said words can't really express it. Yeah. And that's that's not actually such a big mystical thing. I mean, words can't express what the color red is. You try to describe color red, you don't have any words for it. It's red.
Is it red?
Yeah. I mean, you can only kind of use words to give a hint of what things are, and what you're alluding to is something which is not a sensory experience, right? It's beyond the senses, and so therefore it's even harder to put into words because you can't compare it to anything sensory. You can't say, well, it's like tasting an orange, or it's like looking at a sunset. It's not a sensory experience.
Exactly. So, see, after the awakening, what is left here again is the moksha mukti, and that is only interested in pointing how this is functioning here, how it is functioning dynamically, all the mechanism, all the functionality that is going on, how it is functioning. And in reality, it is, this being here is actually singing a tune or speaking or whatever you want to call it. And, and some people accept this, some people reject it, and some people, they're in neutral, is really not this being's concern.
Yeah. So what is your motivation in giving talks and satsangs and all that? What are you attempting to do, or are you attempting to do anything?
Nothing, it's just expressing the expression. See, the life energy, it expresses itself. It is expressing naturally. So this is all it's doing, you see. Even if I show you this leaf right here, you see, that is expressing, you see. These two leaves, they come from one tree, and there are many leaves in the tree, thousands of leaves, and what this being is doing is something like this, it's expressing uniquely, you see. There is no being like this being here, there is no being like that being there who is speaking, and there is no being, you see. These two leaves, they're totally different. If you look closely, they're totally different. You see, but from far it looks same or similar, but they're totally different, you see.
Right.
And each leaf is singing its tune, that whether you pay attention or not, I happen to pay attention. I even pay attention to the birds that is flying. Like this morning I was walking. I even see small insect that I say hello. You see, I acknowledge. You see, even the bird is a part of this universe, and the bird, the insect is also a part of the universe. That is walking, I said hello. You see, because the insect is expressing. You see, whatever you tell me, you see, it's beautiful to me because I see that, even I am walking. And that is beautiful, and I say hello. And this is exactly what I'm doing. This being right here, which is living organism that is functional dynamic, expresses, and this is simply expressing, singing the tune.
Huh. So you're just saying that you feel a kind of a kinship with all life and with all of creation. There's a sort of an intimacy with the birds and the bugs and the leaves and everything, and that you feel motivated to speak and make YouTube videos just the way a bird feels motivated to sit in a tree and sing. There's just a sort of a spontaneous uprising of expression.
Yeah, it's simply expressing. See, this expressing, this energy that is dynamically expressing, is just taking an illusory form. This as a human being, that as a bird, that as an insect, is doing that. In reality, we are all one. You see, this is all dynamic. You see, and we cannot separate in reality. But like I said, we separate. If I go back to my earlier, we separate through this mechanism, mental mechanism that sees us separate. You see, and if I said we are all one, let's have a group hug, blah blah blah. If I do that, hey, I cannot function in the society. The society, is so powerful. You see, is illusion. It's an illusion, but it's a powerful illusion. You see, and this has been going on for millions and millions of years, and we have collected comprehensive collective knowledge, and this is actually driving this whole thing. You see, in part of illusion, and it takes energy and thought projection. You see, if you don't give energy to that, you cannot be part of that. You see. And if you don't give energy to that, give attention to that, see, it rejects you. It throws you out. It calls you loony, you're a loser, you're that, it throws you out of the society. And you have to accept that because it is powerful, you see.
Yeah. So in other words, we have to kind of give some credence to the boundaries, even though we might ultimately understand them to be illusory, in order to live a life, in order to interact with the world, make a living, feed your kids, whatever you need to do. Yeah,
exactly. That's what I go to work. I have a regular job. I am a senior software consultant. I go in the morning. I do job, and just like everyone else. But the recognition here is, I'm not attached to the job. You see, I do the job. I do it passionately. I work hard. But I am not attached to anything, you see. I have a family, I have a wife, I have a daughter. I am passionate about them, but there is no attachment. If anything arises, I am for them, you see. But the attachment is not there, but I am passionate. My heart is there, you see.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And before this thing in 2009, were you attached?
Yes, I was totally attached to everything I did, you see. Totally attached.
Right. And then all of a sudden, or maybe not all of a sudden, but over a period of months as this experience unfolded, you found yourself not attached anymore.
No, it's just, it was
instant.
Fraction of a second, you see. Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that.
And so again, I'm curious, You just woke up one morning and this happened, or had you been doing some kind of meditation or reading spiritual books or going to seminars or anything whatsoever?
Again, I want to assert and point out that awakening, whatever this is nothing that you ever imagine. You see, this is actually a burden in a way, that because it is not something that you imagine that after awakening, oh, you're gonna have so peaceful experiencing the great extraordinary experiencing all the time. No, you see. This is nothing that you ever imagine. This is nothing that is written in the book. This is totally different. That, it's actually a painful sometimes, not painful to me, but it's a painful situation to be in this position, you see.
Why? Why is it painful?
It is not really painful to this being, but I'm speaking in terms of language it's a painful experience, It's not really painful to me. I am not in pain, you see, but it is painful experiencing. I can.
To whom or to what is it? Why are you using the word painful?
I am using the word painful because that is the word we know from the comprehensive collective knowledge. See, the pain and the pleasure. You see, there's two different things, right?
So, but you're saying that awakening was painful, or it could be painful, or something. Is that correct?
Well,
I'm trying to understand what you mean, or why you're using the word painful.
Again, I have to be careful because, see, if I give you that, then you will say, well, it's not painful. It's not.
But you use the word, though. I mean, why did you use the word?
It is the experiencing that is like disastrous. You see, because see, it wipes out all the conditioning that you attached to one point, and it is not there anymore.
Okay, so it's kind of a radical transformation. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And people who have undergone such a radical transformation have often reported, great fearfulness, or it really shook up their world in some way. And it wasn't necessarily, oh boy, I'm so glad this has happened. It was more, holy mackerel, what's happening? Kind of a period of adjustment.
Yeah, and there is no turning back. See, I don't think I could ever go back to the attachment life. And you mentioned fear, because actually there is no fear here, but the fear is here, you see. The fear is here. It's just like a heart. My heart is beating right now. Mm-hmm. I cannot take the heartbeat out, and I cannot take the fear out of my body, you see. The fear is here. But, see, after this experiencing, I am not interested in getting rid of my fear. You see, I am not interested in getting rid of my heartbeat. So the fear is there. I am not interested in getting it. One of the fear is there is the part of the body. You see, when the animals attack, somebody attacks, you're in a dark place, certainly the body gives you that fear. That is the mechanism. But the trying to get rid of the fear gives you more fear, so you're more fearful.
Right, exactly, yeah. There's an old Zen saying, which is that awakening may be an accident, but spiritual practice makes you accident-prone. And a couple of times I've tried to ask you what was going on in your life prior to this event, prior to this awakening, and you've stepped back and hesitated to say it. So I don't know, maybe I won't pursue that line of questioning. We can just, take a guess. But
well, what I do want to point out, Rick, is that you see, you mentioned earlier that I wanted to come back and touch upon on that. So if you practice spiritual practice, and I'm not against anything. I'm not against any religion. I'm not against any scientist. I'm not against any government. I'm not against any society. I am just, happy to be here, you see. And, by practicing, if you want to practice spiritual, I don't, recommend don't practice. After the awakening, I don't eat meat. I don't drink alcohol. I just quit in a fraction of a second like that.
You had been doing those things before?
No, I was making I had a wine shop in my basement. I was making home wine. And I was eating meat almost every day. And after this awakening, just instead of a second, I don't know how it happened, why it happened. It just this body is not interested in taking meat or drinking alcohol. You see, it's all gone. But let me go back to the spiritual awakening. Yes, by practicing, it certainly gives you some extraordinary experiencing. See, if you just sit here, do meditation, even today I say meditation is sleeping. But then again, back then, I used to teach meditation to people at the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. But by doing meditation, it will certainly give you extraordinary experiencing, but that is not the real awakening that everyone is looking for in the spiritual community.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just experiences which come and go, but there is a correlation between meditation practice and awakening. It's sort of like I said in the Zen saying, it does make you accident prone. There's definitely a correlation. I mean, or who knows? I mean, maybe it's people who are destined to have an awakening just are inclined to do practices, and there's no correlation between the two. But it sure does look like various kinds of practices that people do culture the nervous system, or somehow bring about a development which makes it more conducive or likely for some shift to take place.
Yeah. See, that may, again, bring you in the state of what they call is the enlightenment state. But again, that is not the real enlightenment. Even if you come to that state, what I'm pointing out is that is not the real enlightenment. That is the experience of the something extraordinary is not the real enlightenment. So yes.
Well, I didn't mention anything about an extraordinary, but okay. But since you've said that, what is the real enlightenment?
Why are we interested in enlightenment in the first place?
Because you just brought up the word. You said that whatever spiritual practice brings you, it may be something extraordinary, but it's not the real enlightenment. And so that implies that there is something called the real enlightenment that you're referring to.
Well, I don't know if there is such thing as enlightenment, but I am just, speaking in terms of language, if there is such thing as enlightenment.
Okay. So whatever this state is, this shift that happened to you, you're not saying it's enlightenment, but you are saying it's moksha mukti, both of which are synonymous with enlightenment. Enlightenment is the Western word; those are Indian, Hindu, Sanskrit words for liberation, which is what enlightenment is supposed to be. So I'm just kind of trying to get it clear what you're talking about, what your experience is, and what your understanding is of what this state that you're experiencing is.
Yeah, certainly. Again, we are using the thought structure.
Which we have to do if we're going to have a conversation.
Exactly. There is no other way. Other way. Yes. So we are using thought structure to box what has happened. You see, and from my experiencing, what has happened is it's not something that I gained. You see, it's something that I lost. What I lost was a total attachment to the conditioning. That's what happened.
Okay. What else can you say about it besides losing all attachment? Is there any other kind of... you also said you stopped eating meat and drinking alcohol. Is there anything else which you can say which kind of points to what it is or what it was?
Yes, your family and your friends will distant from you because everything you talk like this, and they have no idea what you're talking about, and they know it is something great, and they cannot come to your level, and they say, come to my level. I said, why do I need to come to your level? You come to my level, So you see, it never works.
Well, when the mango tree is ripe, the branches bend down so that it's easy to pick the fruit. It should be possible for a person who's in a realized state to come to the level of the listener, whatever level that may be, and speak to them in a way which they can understand.
Yeah, but see, I don't see any level. People, they see as a level, this level, that level. I don't see as a level. I am just the extra. I'm just a simple, ordinary person. You see, there is no level here.
But you just said that you said to your family, "Come to my level."
That's what their words. They said, "Come, you're high." They didn't say, "Come to my level." I said, "No, you come to my level, whatever that level may be."
So on the one hand, you're saying that I don't mean to be argumentative, but I'm just trying to pin you down. On the one hand, you're saying that your family couldn't understand you anymore because you were speaking from a level or in a certain way which they couldn't relate to.
Natural state.
And why do you feel they couldn't relate to it? Just because it wasn't their experience, right?
No. Well, the whole, I would say 99% of human beings are functioning, in terms of the collective comprehensive knowledge we have collected, you see.
Right.
And that knowledge is, limited. And if you just use that knowledge, which is we use for everyday talking, you won't be able to grasp, you won't be able to, know what that is, in terms of, but there's not knowing anyway, in reality, but just to speak our language, they wouldn't understand or know what I went through.
Okay. Now, obviously, there are other languages, so to speak, that are specialized that help people describe or discuss certain things. For instance, there's the language of mathematics. There's a certain language in music, which involves notes, and a conductor of an orchestra speaks that.
Those are all thought-induced.
Yeah, he speaks that language, and,
Yes.
and the people in the orchestra understand that language. And there are certain languages in medicine and different fields of science and so on that are all specialized, that enable people to communicate with one another in those fields. Now, in spirituality, obviously, we have a lot of terminology, a lot of scriptures, a lot of traditions, and so on, which have been dedicated to or concerned with discussing the kind of thing that we're talking about here. And maybe it's never been perfect. You can't really describe the experience with ultimately satisfactorily, but a lot of them, a lot of people have been trying for thousands of years and have made pretty good efforts in terms of, you read Shankara, you read Ramana Maharshi, you read Nisargadatta, these different guys. They have, they are contemporary people like Adyashanti. They're pretty good at articulating something which is beyond words.
There's no such thing as articulating beyond words. You see, everything that you describe, even the music notes, even the artistry, even poetry is the thought-induced experiencing. You see, so whatever the thought-induced experiencing, I call it impure. It's not really real.
Well, it's a pointer. Like, for instance, music notes. You see all these little squiggles on the paper.
Yes.
And a person who's not trained in music looks at that and it doesn't mean anything to them.
Yes.
A person who's like Sir Neville Mariner or something like that looks at that and sees Beethoven's Sixth Symphony and understands what those squiggles represent and has an appreciation for it. So, there's that old Zen saying again, finger pointing at the moon. Don't mistake the finger for the moon. So all these words are just pointers.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but like the music notes, they provide a means, however inadequate, for communicating that which can only really be experienced and cannot be communicated through words. They provide a way of talking about it.
Yes, the words is different in terms of thinking. Even the music is thinking. So the music is notes. Is thinking. See, everything is thinking. See, without thinking, we cannot be aware.
No,
people
yeah.
say. So it's all thought. Thought is actually what is thought is the electromagnetic field that is functioning on its own. See, even right now, I have no idea what I'm going to say next. You see, even any human being cannot say that I'm going to say something next. The thought is something that is happening spontaneously. It is the electromagnetic field that is arising out of the energy that you have within you, and it is relating to the energy that is happening dynamically. That is, we don't see here. You see, intangible energy that we have. Even the planet, is giving us all this energy that is vibration that we don't see with our eyes. And even distance, trillion lights away, something that is there is actually affecting us that we don't see it. With our eyes, which is intangible, and these things are actually relating to each other. So in this relation, it's a dynamic relation that is going on. It's just the interaction, dance of molecules. The universe is dancing. That is what is happening.
Did you think about this kind of stuff a lot before this awakening, or were you not a very philosophical kind of guy?
I was philosophical, I did, like I said, I did, go back to, went through a lot of, readings and a lot of, listening to the so-called, gurus and stuff like that. But, none of them really helped me in this awakening. This happening is spontaneous, and who is speaking here right now? See, the speaker, I have no idea. See, Robin Pandey could not say all these things, you see. This is happening. This is, happening dynamically. And who is speaking? See, there is only speaking going on. There is no speaker here, you see.
Yeah. And I suppose that's true of just about everything you do, speaking, eating.
Yes, it's a machine. It's a machine. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a machine that is functioning on its own. Although, it appears as it's not functioning, but it is functioning on its own, you see.
Mm-hmm. And that's corroborated by ancient scriptures too. I mean, there's all these verses in the Gita about how one does really. They say even on grasping and letting go and walking and speaking and all this different stuff, one realizes I do not act at all. There's no actor doing all these things.
Yes, I mean those are all assumptions, written in the books. You have no idea what is happening. You just.
Well, it's people who wrote books 5,000 years ago that tried to describe the kind of experience that you're trying to describe now.
They're singing their tune, 5,000 years ago. Whoever wrote that, Bass or whoever wrote that, and and I think whoever wrote that is certainly I heard that they were in high in acid, sitting somewhere in jungle, and experience all this extraordinary experience, which you can buy for I don't know. I've never done acid, but you can get for $10, $50 today, and experience same thing now, and and be able to write something extraordinary like that, you see.
Well, I did it a fair amount back in about 1967, 68, and I can assure you that the experience, although it gives you a glimpse of something, it's not the same as the sort of awakening or awareness that's cultured naturally over time. At least it wasn't for me. It was just sort of a glimpse without actually having cleared out all the garbage that was filling my head, and so it was a very muddled kind of thing. Whereas, as you say, I mean, in the case of your spiritual awakening, there was a dropping of all attachments, and presumably, I mean, what did that do to your thought process? For instance, did you find that prior to that awakening, your mind was kind of noisy a lot and full of extraneous noise, thoughts, and then afterwards it became more quiet and there wasn't so much static going on? It wasn't like 10 radio stations playing at the same time?
No, see, it's nothing like that.
So what was it like?
You see, prior to this, I would say the thought is more linear, linear thought. Now the thought is not linear. It's thought is dynamic.
Spontaneous, would that be?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're kind of, would you say you're more living in the moment?
Exactly. You see, what is important to me is now what is happening, you see, the present. You see, the conversation you and I having, this is all exists now, nothing else. Of course, there are many things happening dynamically, so-and-so is going to grocery store, so-and-so is, working even on Sundays, so-and-so is enjoying, drinking beer, having fun, watching a ball game, my wife and daughter doing something, this is all happening now. See, this is all there is, you see. And we have been misleading by this so-called spiritual forerunners, saying that there is something other than this, you see, and that is the problem.
Who said there was nothing? There was something other than this? You mean like who? Can you think of a forerunner who said that?
Even the discussion we have, there is such thing as enlightened, and if someone is seeking for enlightened, there is something there. You see, other than this. You see, what I say is this is it. This is the this is a great joy for me. Be able to express. There is nothing extraordinary than this.
Yeah, true, but I mean, let's say you go to a drug rehabilitation clinic and you speak to a bunch of people who have, really gone through a difficult time, and or to a prison or something, and you say there's nothing other than this. Well, their this might be quite different than your this.
Yes, materialistic way, yes. It's
different perspective,
yes.
you know.
Yes, materialistic, yes.
And so this whole thing of there's nothing other than this sometimes I think sells it short because it implies that whatever anybody is experiencing is all there is to it. And there's a vast range of capacity of possibility in terms of enhancing or unfolding or clarifying your capacity for experience, so that life doesn't, look like a dismal mess, and you feel inclined to throw yourself in front of a train.
See, right there is the problem, that when you say capacity as the problem, right now, whether you don't have a capacity, and right now, what I point out is right now you have a capacity, you see, but your thought structure is limiting you, saying that there is something different in terms of material, by doing this, that you can experience something extraordinary. You see, I am having extraordinary experience now. You see,
you are.
Yes, but if people, if you want something other than this, I could be sitting on a beach. What are you implying? I could be sitting on the beach, listening to the beach. That could be more extraordinary than this. No, I said no. This is
that would be sitting on a beach. And
yes, that's just the degree or the materialistic approach to see, by being this, by being drug free, by being alcohol free, by stress free, you experience this enlightenment. No, I say even if you're a drunkard, drink every day, and one day you can wake up and be enlightened, awaken, whatever,
It's possible, but you're way out on the fringes of the bell curve if that happens. If you're systematically destroying your nervous system, the likelihood of awakening is, I'd say, less than if you're systematically culturing and purifying it.
Well, that is the thought structure. That is the way of putting in terms of language. That is the way we are taught. That is the way we are conditioned. That is the way you are speaking. Yes.
It's also what we actually see in the real world. We see people who have, and I'm going to interview a guy next week who was a serious drug addict for many years, and he eventually came out of it. I don't know what he thinks of himself in terms of awakened or not, but he wouldn't trade his old condition for his current one, because he was doing so much damage to himself, and it was warping his perspective so severely that it was, making his life and those around him utterly miserable. And where he is today is a far cry from that. So, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What I'm saying is that the eye of the beholder has a wide range of possibilities, from hellish to heavenly, and that, one can actually, even though ultimately there may be no doer and no chooser and no free will, for all appearances, one can actually make choices and take actions which can move you toward the more pleasant phases of that spectrum.
Again, actually, I wanted to go back and touch up what you said. You see,
okay,
there is the idea that is out there. See, and you have that idea in you that is speaking in terms of this is the way things should be, you see. So through that idea, we are saying, by having X and Y or A, B, C, that this person is going to be less miserable, this person is going to make the society less miserable, because we are putting the idea there, you see. And that is all coming from the idea. So what I'm speaking is, it is coming from the natural expression, or the natural thought process, or whatever. It's not even thought process. I don't know even what it's coming from. It is coming from spontaneously. So even the idea is false, because the idea is present there. And I'm not saying, if I go back into real world, I'm not saying, you live your life miserably. No. But see, what I'm pointing out is the idea that drives these things, you see, by saying, this is the way the idea is, this is the ideal model is, and everyone should be like that, and that is what I'm saying is false.
Yeah, everyone shouldn't be like anything. I mean, there's always going to be variety. Like your two leaves, no two leaves are the same, no two people are the same. But what I'm suggesting is that actions do have consequences, and the consequences of one's actions, one's choices, can make one either more happy, more miserable.
Yes.
And, that as long as one appears to have volition, it can be exercised and can kind of steer the course of one's life in one direction or another. I'd like to take an example of the kind of practical utility of this spiritual stuff. Gangaji, for instance, you probably heard of Gangaji. Back in the old days, did a lot of prison programs, and she was visiting prisons in Colorado and elsewhere, and a number of people who are now, living pretty happy, well-adjusted lives were in those prisons and who had contact with Gangaji, and it really transformed them, like John Sherman and Kenny Johnson, both of whom I've interviewed. So there's this kind of notion that's popular in some spiritual circles, that there's no causality between anything one does or engages in and a spiritual transformation, or that can kind of, I think, lead to nihilism, where one feels like, well, why do anything then? But you see time and time again that when people do engage in something like this interaction these guys had with Gangaji, it can be transformative. And so I'm just kind of saying that to play devil's advocate, because you kept insisting that nothing you had done prior to this awakening in 2009 could have had anything to do with it, and I'm suggesting that it may very well seem that way, but I'm skeptical.
You see, yeah, you're right. I mean, that is again, I want to go back to the comprehensive collective knowledge we have collected millions of years, and actually that is driving you and I, and that model gives us the idea that certain things should be this way, you see, and that is actually driving the human race today, and billions of human beings, I would say about 99% billion human beings follow that structure and try to fit themselves into that type of model, you see. And what I'm pointing out is that well, you mentioned Gangaji, who she went to the prison, and point this to people that there is I don't know what she pointed, but if I were her, I would say, there is a reality with R and reality with the big capital R, and this is all illusion. If you don't attach too much yourself to this the reality, that maybe give you more peace. That's all I can say. I can tell them. I can certainly point them to have more peaceful within whatever they are. But what I'm pointing out is that is not the real reality. See, even the peace. Is there such thing as a peace? Even I question peace.
Yeah. Well, Gangaji may have said something like that to those people. I don't know what she did. She also has a certain presence, and presence can be contagious. There can be a transmission kind of value that, even without saying anything, like Ramana Maharshi a lot of times didn't say very much. He just sat around, but his presence was transformative to those who were in his vicinity. So I guess maybe I'm saying spirituality is contagious. One question that occurred, that my wife actually brought it up to me, just passed me a note. She said, apart from any practices, did you have a spiritual desire or thirst, prior to this awakening? I mean, you kind of said you did. You were reading books and listening to satsangs and all. So there must have been a thirst. There must have been an intention or some kind of desire.
Who doesn't desire for something great?
Yeah, some people don't, or at least they don't set their sights as high as perhaps you did. They can think, oh, what I really want is a new car, and not everybody does. I mean, most people have material aspirations, like you said, the 99%, which in this case has a negative connotation, are primarily concerned with tangible stuff. They're not concerned with what you're alluding to, which is much more kind of abstract.
Yeah, certainly. You see, Rick, everyone aspires for some desire. Without desire, I don't think this dynamic would function.
I agree.
So desire is there, even there is today, but attachment to desire is not here.
That's a good point.
So desire is always there. Desire actually drives the whole humanity.
Yeah.
Or even I think the universe created us through desire. So desire is there, and you see. The desire for material things like car, being a rock star, superstar, or having a millionaire, become a big house, see, that desire and becoming an enlightened person, I don't see the difference there.
I agree. I mean, it's the same basic fundamental craving for more, for happiness, you know.
Yeah.
I think I maybe heard you say that a lot in your talks, that ultimately what one is looking for is happiness, or am I thinking of somebody else? But, you know, whether it's a car or a mansion or fame or enlightenment, I think the fundamental motivation is the same.
Yeah, because see, even you do spiritual practice to become a spiritual person, to have the spiritual power, you see. Even
Who does?
The spiritual community, like priest and, whoever, your guru.
Some people do, but I don't think some people are perhaps more simple and sincere in their motivation. They're not thinking, I want spiritual power. It's more like they just want truth. They want to live a true and meaningful, and they want to come out of any sort of delusion or confusion. They just want to know what's real. That's their motivation, pure and simple.
Well, some people maybe, but a lot of people who, if you are seeking, like if I want to go back to this, if you said, there's a difference between seeking for the, material desire versus spiritual desire. What I say is both are thought-induced desire. So both are thought and material, they're the same. So if you're thinking, that thought and the desire, they're the same thing.
Yeah.
See, because if you boil down to the thought, you see, the thought is the wave function, electromagnetic field. It's a wave function. If you narrow down to even this material, the leaf, you see, thought and the leaf, they're the same, because this is also a wave function. Thought is a wave function, and you probably heard yogis in India who have produced orange in their hand with their thoughts so they can fulfill their hunger.
Yeah, you read about that, autobiography of a yogi and so on. But on your point, I think one thing leads to the next. There, as you say, the whole creation came about through desire. You said that a minute ago, and each of us, being a kind of an expression of our aspect of creation, is motivated by the same fundamental tendency that maybe gave rise to creation itself, which is greater and greater. There's a saying, contact with Brahman is infinite joy, and it seems that the whole flow of life is in the direction of greater and greater happiness, or at least an attempt at greater and greater happiness. And one thing leads to the next, and you get the new car and you find, oh, that didn't make me happy. I want a bigger car, or I want a bigger house. And eventually you kind of realize, well, it seems like none of these material things are going to make me happy. Maybe there's something non-material that could make me happy. And then maybe you start searching in the spiritual direction.
Yes. Certainly your linear thought will point like that. Linear thought will emphasize that this event will lead to that event, and this event will lead that way. I said no, because what is happening independently, and it is happening dynamically. You see, no two events can relate to one another. It's happening independently. You see, all these molecules that is dancing in relationship. You see. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, you do something that lead to that. You see, it's never like that. See, what I say is you are already awakened, so the only thing that is blocking you now is your thought, even a tiny thought that is moving a finger, you see, is blocking you to recognize that. You see, you are already enlightened, already awakened, you see, whatever is that term, if that exists.
So would you say that is equally true of all 7 billion people in the world, that they're already awakened, they're already enlightened?
Yes, there's no difference. How the living organism, how this is functioning here and there, essentially and fundamentally is functioning exactly the same way. There's no difference.
Yeah, but there's something that blocks.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, by this logic, Adolf Hitler was already enlightened,
well,
and the guy who shot up the movie theater in Colorado a year ago.
Essentially and fundamentally.
Essentially, that's the key word.
Fundamentally, you see, what Hitler is his thought is totally different. But the living organism, how it's functioning, I'm saying, the breathing mechanism, the heart is beating. See, right now, I can feel my heart, it's beating, you see. And all here in this here is a hollow, wherever this person is sitting is hollow thing. All I can do is feel is my heartbeat. So all here is a heartbeat that is functioning, you see.
Yeah.
And all this activity, that's what I'm talking about, not the thought structure, which is mechanical, that is placed in us.
But what does all this
society.
heart beating and everything have to do with enlightenment or awakening?
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about how we are functioning, you see, how we are functioning exactly the same way. You see, the heart is beating here.
Yeah, and the same is true of a chipmunk. I mean, his heart is beating. Yeah, but when you say that everyone is already enlightened, then my question is, all right, fine. If essentially they are, but the name of the game is realizing it, not just saying.
Attachment to your thoughts. Even you know, moving this finger is a thought. You see, that is blocking you to recognize that.
Okay, and so when you had your awakening, you kind of in a moment, in an instant, got unattached to everything, but you don't know how it happened to you. And
there is no way.
It just happened.
No way. This is no way now. And you know, you may say pure luck, or by the grace of God, if He exists. You see, that's all I like to say.
I interviewed a guy a couple of years ago that was crossing a parking lot, and a car almost hit him, and tires screeched, and you know he was shocked, and he awoke, and that was it. He didn't change back after that. He was awakened.
Yes, let me actually point you. I had an earlier thought to you know, what you just wanted to say. Actually, I don't want to miss that. Even a tiny insect that is crawling on the ground. See, even this leaf falling from the tree. You see, even this conversation, even the word I say, hello, or something. You see, or something that you read in the book. You see, these are all coincidence. You see. What is happening, the awakening I point out, is that it is happening spontaneously without you have no control, that is happening, and it is just a coincidence that you happen to sit in the temple, or you happen to sit in with the guru, or you happen to listening to me, or you have to listen to someone else, or you have to listen to you know, some great person, you know, great personality, whoever that is, you know. So see, those things are just coincidence, you see, and certainly you know, if the person has been through this spiritual training and learning, you know, experience this, and they recognize this right away, and they say, "Oh, this now I know I am awakened." But see, there are millions of people who are already awakened. You see, they do not recognize that. Well, they recognize that peculiarly, but they don't know how to speak the words like you and I are speaking. So you know, we don't know who they are, but these people exist.
Well, I think there's truth to that. I think more, especially these days, it seems more and more people are awakening, and in many cases they don't have any kind of spiritual background, and they don't know what it is at first. And, maybe after they have the awakening, then they start searching. I mean, Eckhart Tolle was an example. You know, after the awakening, then he started putting the pieces together. But I still think that, you know, it's like if you to use your temple example, but to make it more metaphorical, if you hang out in a temple, you're going to come out smelling like incense. If you hang out in a bar, you're going to come out smelling like alcohol and tobacco. So, you know, what you, which was the way that my father smelled when he came home every night, but according to what you do and the company you keep, and this is actually a point that's emphasized a great deal in the Vedic tradition, is that the company of the enlightened is a very powerful technique in and of itself for getting enlightened.
Yes. What I'm saying is that even that putting into that situation, see, you have no way of, you know, you also say, well, I made a choice to be there. But see, what I'm pointing out is you don't have a choice. See, the choice is happening spontaneously, and you happen to, you know, it appears that many events that led it to that point, this is linear thinking, and you are there, happen to be in this community, great community, and you stay there many years, and you happen to be enlightened. What I'm pointing out is that is happening dynamically, and you are enlightened, you know, if there's such thing exists. And, you know, and you say, well, you know, because I am in this present group of people, then I am enlightened. You know, that is just the way of, you know.
Not because you're in the group. I'm just saying that certain associations can be more conducive to it than others, certain activities more conducive than others. And, you know, if you say that there is actually nothing you can do whatsoever, and it doesn't matter what you do, it's either going to happen or it's not, and you're already there even if you don't know it, it doesn't give people much to go on. And you know, I mean, the 7 billion people in the world, fine, they're all enlightened on some level, but most of them don't have any inkling of that such a thing even exists. It's not really a practical instruction, you know. It's not going to be able to...
If there is such a practical instruction, you see, there is no instructions for this.
I think there is. I think that one can give practical advice. One can give talks that can be conducive to enlivening this.
Yes,
there can be a value. I mean, you go to like a lot of people who, for instance, I'm using him as a case in point because I like him a lot. Adyashanti. A lot of people who go to his satsangs end up having these awakenings. Even some people who've been like seeking for decades, and then they go and they hear him say a few things, and something clicks. They probably wouldn't have gotten that day if they just stayed home and watched the football game.
Again, I think you're missing a point. What I'm pointing is that even going to that event is totally unrelated and totally independent, because what is meant to happen, it happens. You're sitting down, even in the bar, you're drunk, you're enlightened. That is totally underrated. But what I'm not
very unlikely.
No.
I don't know how many bars you've hung out in. Maybe you have, but I haven't found too many enlightened people in them.
I mean, see, again, the enlightened, whatever what we're talking about is totally unrelated to anything that we do. The gurus and these people who will sell you in the marketplace. They'll sell you in the marketplace. All these ideas and beliefs. Somebody I heard that they're doing this tantric sex. To enlighten people, which is totally rubbish, because you cannot enlighten people by doing a tantric sex or doing yoga, samadhi, all that thing. Because these gurus, they're actually selling this in the marketplace. So it's a big business.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of crazy stuff that people do. I mean, it's a whole huge potpourri of different things, and I'm not suggesting that everything is of equal value, that all teachers are of equal usefulness. I mean, it's a real hodgepodge, and you kind of gravitate toward what attracts you, I suppose. But the only point I'm making is that it's not all just sort of haphazard, and that there are causal relationships. You just have to choose your teacher wisely, choose your practice wisely if you're going to do one, to the best of your knowledge, and keep your eyes open. There's a lot of spiritual casualties, a lot of people who get really traumatized or disillusioned by association with teachers and so on. But there's some good ones, and you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
See, I don't even consider myself teachers, and I know in this community a lot of people don't even consider themselves as a teacher. See, what we're doing is we're pointing out, and you see, the real guru, what I say is already within you. You see, it's here. So the source is here. That knows. You see, that guru is here. That is, in Sanskrit word, that what I call is Mahaguru, which is the guru of the guru is already here. Mm-hmm. So those guys are just pointing out, look into that, look into that, look into that. So
and most of them say that. Guys like Ramana Maharshi, they probably said those very words to people. That it's the real guru is within.
Yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that there's no value whatsoever in having an external guru if that's your inclination. It's not that it has no significance whatsoever for a person. I mean, a lot of people who listen to this show, I've gotten some great reports, have kind of gotten into some kind of association with someone I've interviewed, after having seen them on the show, and have undergone a dramatic shift as a result of that association. So if that happens, great. I mean, who am I or you to say that it couldn't happen or shouldn't happen or anything?
No, I'm not saying, I'm not for a moment saying that, you shouldn't do anything. You shouldn't go to this guru or that guru. You should practice this. I'm not saying anything like that. Well, what I'm saying is what I experience here is totally unrelated to anything, any event in life. That's what.
No, I understand that. So you're speaking from your experience, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But let's not take our own experience as the sort of the universal truth that it's going to apply that way for everybody. It was that way for you.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to sound like that, you see. And like I said, I go back, see, this being right here is speaking, is singing my tune. Other people will sing their own tune. You see?
Different tunes.
So everyone is singing different tunes to get the piece of the resources. Mm-hmm. See, that is available to us. So everyone wants to get the piece of resources that is available to us, to them. So that's what everyone is doing. See, we are singing our tune. You see, and but the commitment here, as I said, I had an appointment to go to St. Louis, which I canceled to be here because this was the commitment. You see, the commitment here is with the truth. See, and the truth that you see is actually is nothing that you imagine to be. You see, again, I'm speaking from my experience.
Yeah,
The truth I see is totally nothing that I thought before or
Right.
felt before. It's totally different. And the truth that we speak today is trivial truth, like my name, address, telephone number,
Sure.
what I do, this is my family, this is my house, this is my car. So those are only trivial truth. But the truth I'm speaking about, the real truth is totally nothing like what I imagined.
No, that's great. I appreciate that, and a lot of people have said that too. That even people who read a lot of books and studied a lot of stuff and everything, when it actually dawns on them, sometimes they don't even know what the heck it is because it's so different than what they conceived of beforehand. So that's great. Well, that's a good note to perhaps start to wrap it up on. I mean, you look at a beautiful garden this time of year, and there's all these different flowers and plants and diversity and all that, and that's kind of what the Garden of God is like. There's you, there's all 183 other people I've interviewed, and 1,000 people on my waiting list, and a million people who aren't even on the waiting list who would be equally interesting to talk to, and each one is a different expression, like your two leaves, and
Yes.
and even in the spiritual camp, they're all saying something that's fundamentally the same, but each unique in its own way. And I think each one has its contribution to make. I mean, if Robin Pandy was the only guy in the whole world talking about this stuff, then there would
it would be boring. War would be boring.
yeah, it's not the way God operates. I mean,
It would be boring.
yeah, God seems to operate in terms of just sort of abundant diversity and multitudes of variety and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, I hope you feel like this was worth your while. I was a little bit argumentative, but I felt like I just wanted to make it a lively discussion. And
Exactly.
sorry you had to miss your thing in St. Louis. I hope you have another opportunity to do that.
This will come. Don't worry about that. So yeah, I do enjoy talking with you, and this is all like you said, it's a dynamic experience, and I enjoy being here today. And I don't see it as an argument, Rick. I mean, I see this as all part of this flowing.
Yeah, a
talk.
lively
I
discussion.
don't see. Yeah. This is all part of the truth, and the more argument I have, I feel good because that leads. Again, I don't want to say leads, but that points you to the truth. So
No, I know what you mean. I mean, I used to give lectures myself on meditation, and I really appreciated it when there was somebody in the audience who really kind of gave me a hard time,
Yeah.
because it would really bring out a lot more than if they all just sat there and
Exactly.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
So let me make a couple of wrap-up points.
Yeah.
I've been speaking with Robin Pandy, or Moksha Mukti. Many people adopt a spiritual name these days, and he's known as Moksha Mukti. I'll be linking to his website. I guess you have a Google Plus page and a YouTube channel. Do you have an actual website or no?
I have a WordPress, Robin Pandey,
Okay.
WordPress.com.
Yeah, send me the link to that, and I'll link to that, your YouTube, all these things. And
I have a couple of books, Amazon.com.
okay, I'll link to those as well. Waves Metamorphosizing into Revelation is one, I believe.
Yes.
Is that right? And
Yes.
did I get that right?
Morphosing, I think. Not morphosizing, morphosing.
Okay, good. And good. So and then obviously through
And the
your-
other one is ever perpetuating present moment.
Right. And people can get in touch with you through your website, through your WordPress blog.
If they're interested.
If they wish, yep, or watch your YouTube videos. So a few wrap-up points which I always like to make about batgap.com. It's an acronym for Buddha the Gas Pump. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, for instance, you could go to batgap.com, and there you'll see the whole thing, all the interviews that have been done so far, with both an alphabetical and a chronological index. There's a discussion group that pops up around each interview in case you want to get chatting about the things that have been discussed in the interview. There's a donate button, which I rely upon people clicking occasionally in order to keep the whole thing rolling. There is a link to an audio podcast, so you can get this on iTunes and just listen to the audio. And there is a tab that you can click to sign up to be notified by email each time a new interview is posted. So that's it. Thanks for listening or watching. Thank you very much, Moksha. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah, to those who've been listening or watching, we'll see you next week. Next week is going to be this fellow I referred to named Tom Catton, who really had a hell of an experience in his drug days, and through spirituality came out of it. And I found his story quite heroic, and I felt like he deserved an interview and that it might help people who are going through similar things to him. So thanks again. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.